Alright YouTubers, now I'm going to change out the front right rotors, front right brake pads, and when I took everything off, I discovered my linkage, my sway bar linkage was leaking right here, so I'm going to change that out too. So might as well, since the tires are off. Just make sure that you turn your height adjustment to off before you lift up the car. You might run into problems later on if you don't. Okay. Take off the tires, and here we are. Now if you're working on the right side, you want to turn your steering wheel all the way to the left so you have access to whatever's behind here. What I made a big mistake by taking off these 17 millimeters, thinking they would take off the calipers, but no, you're not supposed to take them off. What you're supposed to do is, behind the calipers there are two 14 millimeter bolts right here and right down there, two 14 millimeter bolts. Once you remove those, I'm using an impact gun, by the way. Once you remove those, this whole thing slides right off. It's a little stiff because the brake pads are compressed to the rotors, but you can just jiggle and just take them off. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm probably going to take off the spring clip. There's these two pins right here and these two pins, and at the end of the pins there's the little locking mechanisms that goes right inside the hole. They're really easy to take off. I would normally get like a little flathead screwdriver and I would just pry it out of its hole. I'm right-handed, so let me use my right hand here. So what I would do is I would just pry this open until it comes right out. There you go. Came right off, and I would just jiggle it. There, it looks just like that. Can you guys see it? Okay. I'm going to put it on my side steps right here. It's a good thing about this car, it's got side steps. Put everything. And same thing with the bottom pin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little flathead screwdriver and just pry it out of its hole. There you go. Came right out. See there? Put on my side steps. Now, with that pin out, I'm going to slide these rods out. See that? Comes right out. Woo! Side steps again. Same thing with the bottom pin. Slide it right out. Oops, the bottom one's a little stiff there. Okay. Well, there you go. The reason why I'm making this video is because there's not much you can find on 2003 to 2009 Lexus GX470 first generation. You'll see a whole bunch of Sequoias and Tundras and 4Runners, and they'll tell you pretty much the same thing, except I kind of wanted to do a video only because I couldn't find anything on the GX470. So why not do one on the GX470 instead of just searching for Tundras and Sequoias all the time? So after you took the pin out, there's a little spring clip right here that you could just remove. Comes out of a little hole. See that? Spring clip. Just remember, you're going to put everything back in reverse later on, so just remember your steps. Okay, so once those spring clips are out, you see these brake pads, they're a little stiff in there, so even when you take out the little 14 millimeter bolts in the back, they'll still be a little stiff. So I've got a little handy tool. It's called a huge C-clamp. Look at this. See the C-clamp? What I do is I would put the C-clamp against the brake pad and against the caliper, and I would just tighten it, and once you tighten it, it will separate the brake pads from the rotor itself. So I can't do that with one hand, so I'm going to shut this off and come back to you guys. Okay, so right now I loosen up the 14 millimeters in the back. You see, there's one and two. Not 14, I meant 17. 17 millimeters that hold this caliper onto the assembly. See? So if the brake pads are still kind of stiff in there, what I did was I used the C-clamp, and I clamped, and I'll show you how I clamped it. I clamped one end of the brake pad to the end of the caliper, and I just tightened it, and all it did was just squeeze them together to press the pistons back into the caliper. So now it's loose, and if you still feel that it's stiff, what I would do is I'd take a flathead screwdriver, stick it in the hole of the brake pad, and just pry it out little by little, and it should come out. Bingo, there you go. It's coming out. See? See that? Same thing with the other side. If it's a little stiff, just pry it out. There you go, just like that. After you pry them out, you want to take the 17 millimeters in the back. There's two of them, 17 millimeters. Then you could take this caliper off and the rotor should just fall right out. My rotor's pretty loose in there. See that? It could come out. There's no, you know, there's no special tools or anything to push those rotors out. Okay, I just removed my old rotors. There. See how scored it is? I didn't even bother to have it resurfaced or anything, even though it looks in good condition. Rotors nowadays are fairly cheap, so I might as well just buy a brand new one. See this? Brand new rotor. So once I put the brand new rotor on, it was fairly easy. Once those two 17 millimeters in the back came out, this whole thing just came off. Whole thing came off. I took the rotors off and I put the brand new ones on. They're very easy. They came on very easily. So I noticed when I put the calipers back on, the pistons were still out a ways, and I wasn't able to fit the new pads inside. So what I would have to do is I would have to move this out just a little bit, and I would have to stick the old brake pads in there and C-clamp the old brake pads and the caliper together and just tighten until these back off, until this goes back into its place. Enough space for me to put in the new brake pads. Okay, this is what's going to look like trying to push the pistons back in. I put in my old brake pad while this caliper is off. I put in my old brake pad and I put this big C-clamp on. So one end of the C-clamp goes onto the brake pad, the other goes onto the caliper, and all I do is I tighten it. When I tighten this brake pad will push the pistons back into place, so I have enough space to put in the brand new brake pads.